Welcome to Invisible Strings, where we tug at the little threads that hold our lives together. From mental health and relationships to marriage, motherhood, and all the beautiful chaos in between. I'm Katie, your guide to navigating life's tangled web, one string at a time. Think of this as your weekly dose of insight, sprinkled with a bit of laughter, some heartfelt chats, and maybe even a happy tear or two. So, whether you're juggling a million things or you just need a break, let's untangle life together, because those invisible strings, they're what keep us connected. This is Invisible Strings. Let's get started. Welcome back to Invisible Strings. I'm so excited to be here, and I hope you are. This is episode number 7, and it's going to be a good one. I hope that everyone enjoyed Jules last week. I have heard from a lot of people, and it was a hit. And I'm so happy and grateful that she was open to coming on the show. It is scary sometimes, even though these are pre recorded and they're not live and we can edit them, they're still, you're being a little bit vulnerable. And while I am totally good with doing that most of the time, I know a lot of people are not. So I really appreciate anyone that comes on and talks about their story. And I hope you realize that your story can really just be a lifeline for someone going through hard things. And I'm just so grateful for everyone that comes on and is vulnerable and tells their story. And I'm grateful that people tune in and listen. And I hope that it's been helpful for you. So this week, we're going to talk about the burnout culture, really just decisions that don't necessarily make sense, decisions that you make when you start feeling this nudge. For me, it's God. For other people, it's other things. I felt this enormous nudge. It didn't start enormous. It actually started quite small, but God was really poking at me for a good 11 months before I was obedient and listened to what he was saying to me. And that is what I want to talk about today. It's just this struggle that most of us go through with this go, go, go mentality: do more, make more, vacation more. And it's exhausting. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling exhausted, or you feel like you're just giving out more than you are getting, this episode is for you. We're going to talk about the burnout culture that's so deeply ingrained in our lives. And I'm going to share a personal story about how God really moved in my life over the last 11 months. Sometimes when we feel burned out, we're waiting for this big loud call to change, but often it's in the subtle whispers that we find the clarity that we need. And it's not easy. Well, it's not always easy to act on it, especially when you're not sure where it's coming from, and especially when it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to leave your job. It doesn't make sense to sell your house. It doesn't make sense to move out of the state. But I know that so many of you feel a calling. I know so many of you feel the nudges. I know so many of you hear from God. And it's really important to listen, have discernment, and then act on it. So let's talk about what it means to live in a world that tells you to go, go, go. For me, I was constantly in motion, like since I was 5 years old, my mom will tell you, just pushing myself for more, more, more. I think for me, it was to keep my brain moving so I wouldn't have to sit still and think and I wouldn't be anxious. It was like I was trying to check off a list of things that would fix me. I wanted to fill this void in my soul. I have felt this void. I remember feeling it when I was a little girl. Just something was missing. And I guess I was always trying to fill it. Fill it with friends, fill it with stuff, trips, money, status, anything. Anything can go in that blank right there. put your stuff in there, and it never actually makes me full. I've never felt full before, and I think that had a lot to do with my anxiety. So I just kept on going. I just kept on going and buying and fixing and making and just trying to keep my mind off of feeling empty. So I thought, okay, once I make this amount of money, I'll be happy. Or once I get to go on that dream vacation, I'm going to be satisfied. I'm going to feel at peace. But here's the kicker: I kept achieving those things, and the void in my soul just grew bigger. The more I did, the more I bought, the more I vacationed, nothing seemed to fill the emptiness. I started to believe that there was something wrong with me. Maybe I wasn't working hard enough. Maybe I wasn't doing enough. I mean, how could I do more than I was already doing? Maybe I needed to fix myself. But it was like no matter how many things I crossed off this list, the ache inside me didn't go. So this feeling, this something's wrong with me thought was so deeply embedded in my mind that I didn't even notice God whisper in the midst of it. But now looking back, I can see it. He was gently, quietly guiding me for months. I remember saying to Brad probably a year and a half ago, something's wrong, something's missing. I feel like I have everything I could ever want. I've achieved so much, and I still feel empty. How do I feel empty? I'm married to my best friend. I have four amazing children. I lived in a beautiful house. I was healthy. I had everything. I didn't understand why I felt so empty. The answers weren't coming in the ways I thought they would. It wasn't about more stuff or bigger goals. I realized it was really about slowing down, reconnecting, and concentrating on the things that actually matter. And that's hard. I was fighting it like a child. I don't want to do anything hard. I want to do the stuff that's easy. I've already done all the hard stuff. I've already done the hard stuff. But it wasn't really up to me. That whole time I felt like God was moving in the background, and I was obviously too busy to notice. But for 11 months, I kept feeling this pull to slow down, to rest, and to let go. And it's funny because my whole life I have done it all. And I have friends and my family have always said, "You're really overscheduled. You're doing a lot. How are you managing? How is this working? Like, I don't understand how you can do all this stuff. Wow, this is so amazing." Do you know I don't like when people tell me, "I'm so impressed with everything you can do," because it was miserable. I don't want anyone to be impressed with busyness. I can promise you that person that's so busy, that's doing all the things, that's going to all the parties, that are vacationing all over the world, they're not happy. They're empty. A friend of mine told me last night that the new 1%, the new wealth, what looks like wealth, are the people that are with their families all the time. And they're the people whose kids like to hang out with them. And they're the people who don't live in the biggest house on the block. And the ones that are quiet. That is the real sign of wealth now. Crazy, right? He was saying, "You're running on empty, and I need you to stop before you run into a wall." I remember telling Brad that I was done with the stuff. I didn't like my home. It was a beautiful home. It wasn't comfortable. I don't know how else to explain that. It's crazy to me because that's all I wanted. I went from like an 1,100 square foot house in Chicago to a 5,000 square foot house in North Carolina, and it was too much space. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. I just kept feeling it though. I kept feeling like this is too much. We don't need all these rooms. We don't need all this furniture. I don't want to clean all these floors. I want to spend time with my family. I want to spend time with my friends. I want to spend time with God. And all this other stuff is making it really hard to be able to enjoy any of that. And here's where things got really real. As I was trying to slow down and make these changes, I started to realize that this wasn't about burnout. It was spiritual warfare. My life was literally falling apart. And I'm not just talking about exhaustion or physical signs of burnout. I'm talking about the deeper, unseen battles that were happening in the background that I couldn't even recognize. Not everybody believes this, but I believe that Satan always attacks us where he knows we will unravel the most. I was already at my lowest. I don't think I could be any lower. And it's kind of funny because during this season, I had broken my ankle, which is not funny, but I'd broken my ankle and I had to have surgery and I had to be still. I could do nothing. It was horrible. And I remember kind of making a joke, being like, maybe God has something to tell me. It's the only way he's going to be able to is if I'm still. I started a new job in the same industry I was in, and everything was falling apart. I had never been in this kind of season before. I'd never been in a season where I thought that I had everything I could possibly want, everything that I had looked for, I had. And I was incredibly unhappy. I was unhappy with my job. I was unhappy with my home. I was unhappy with my relationships. And I felt like in that time, the thing that unraveled me the most was my marriage. I've never felt like that was a problem before. But with Brad dealing with some mental health issues for himself and with me dealing with my own, we were not connecting at all. And it was really the first time in forever or in ever really that was the case. And it's kind of like when you're at your lowest, like he was at his lowest, I was at my lowest. And then like, how would our marriage survive this? Brad and I have always been very strong. We've always been on the same page. We feel the same about mostly everything: parenting, politics, um, jobs. Just we've always seen eye to eye. And this just felt incredibly disconnected. I was irritable, I was distant, and I was absolutely emotionally unstable. And I really felt like the enemy was using all of this to drive a wedge between us even deeper. I felt like if we didn't make some serious changes, we were going to go down a road that would be really hard to come back from. When I say we would go down a road that would be hard to come back from, I'm not talking about things that were tangible. I'm not talking about affairs. I'm not talking about um, drugs or alcohol or pornography. I'm just talking about on a soul level, on our level of connection, which to me is so much deeper than anything else. And I just, in that moment, I knew that we needed to do something different. Um, Brad has always been strong, and we've been stretched thin before many times, but this just felt like it was on a deeper level. I knew we could not keep going in the same direction. I knew that we had to make some choices, and we had to figure out a way to connect, to make these intentional decisions that would ultimately save our family and the generations to come. So, when you hear about what happened in the amount of time that it happened, it's not going to make any sense to you. It made no sense to me. We were praying a lot. I was praying so much for my family and for Brad and for myself, and this emptiness, it was so big. It was so gigantic, and I felt like I have to figure this out. Like this is something that is not me. It's not who I am. And I just remember praying like, God, would you please bring people in my life that can help me? I can't do this by myself. We can't do this by ourselves. We need somebody. We need people. We need a community. And it was almost instantaneous. He answered those prayers so quickly. Like he was not messing around. It was almost like, I've been waiting for this. Thank you so much. A couple of days later, I met Jules. And I don't think anything's a coincidence. And I love to watch how he weaves this tapestry together of people. And it's happening in the background and we don't always necessarily see it. And it's incredible. So you're probably thinking, what were these big changes that you made? What did you do that changed the whole trajectory of your life? Well, I had been talking to Brad and crying a lot about how much I did not enjoy my job anymore and how I really felt that a 9 to 5 corporate job was not where it was for me anymore. And I needed to be with my kids. He was like, "Well, we can't do that right now. We have this house, we have all these expenses. You can't just not work anymore. How would that make sense? That doesn't make sense." I'm like, "Okay, well, what if we got rid of the house?" And he was like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a house. Who cares?" And it took him a couple days to maybe a couple weeks really to let that digest a little bit. And I would point things out like, "Listen, the girls had me all the time. I had my own photography business. I was able to be home with them and be there for pickup, drop off, if they need to come home from school. Like, and I didn't have this extra layer of work. And honestly, you guys, like, and I know so many people love working and that's great. That's amazing. And, or they have to work. Uh, and that's fine. But for me, I felt like I can't do all these things. Nothing is getting the best part of me. Work is not, my kids are not, my husband's not, my friends are not. And I couldn't put myself into anything 100%. And it was awful. So when Brad wrapped his head around the fact that we were going to sell our house after buying it 3 years previously, he was like, "Okay, cool. We sell our house. Where are we going to go? There's nothing available. There's nothing here." And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do. Maybe the house doesn't even sell. Let's just figure it out." So I call my girlfriend up and I'm like, "We gotta sell the house." She was like, "What are you talking about?" I hadn't shared this with anyone. "We are gonna sell the house. I'm quitting my job or selling the house." Okay. She got on the market really quickly. It went after the first day, over asking, and it was it. Done. Like very easy, very obvious, and it went for more than we were hoping for. So, and it went quickly. So we ended up renting back in our old neighborhood that our boys love being in because all of their friends are here and they're able to ride their bikes and their scooters everywhere. And they could not be more happy. Check. That was the right decision. I remember moving in here and it's much smaller. It's not small, but it's just much smaller than what we were used to. Less rooms. Exactly what I was saying. Like the other house was amazing. It was huge, but it was big. It didn't feel like at home. It didn't feel cozy. It didn't feel warm. You didn't feel like you could like snuggle up on the couch. The ceilings were so tall. There were so many rooms. There was 3 floors. This house is not. It's small. There's not a lot of rooms and it forces you to be together. And I remember moving in and the kids being like, "Mom and Dad, thanks so much for getting this house. It's so cozy. It feels like a home." And like my heart was so happy. I knew that the stuff didn't matter to them. They didn't care. They could care less about it. They wanted the connection, which is what we all want. We all want the connection. So here we are. We've sold our house. We've moved into a smaller home in a neighborhood that our kids are thriving in and are so happy with. I don't have to even think about any sort of decorating or anything like that because it's not ours. So perfect. We got rid of so much stuff. Life already felt quieter. It felt manageable. And I'm no longer working, connected with old friends. And I have strengthened relationships that I never was able to give any time to. And then it felt like the world just opened up again. It felt like I was climbing out of this dark hole. I felt more connected to Brad. I felt more connected to God. I felt like my heart posture changed. And I really do feel like God is going to humble you before he elevates you. And we're still in the midst of it. But I feel like that is exactly what is happening. And that is exactly what happened. And it was like, I'm going to give you everything you think you want so you can realize that even all the things will never fill you up without me. Your character has to match your calling. So If you're listening right now and you're feeling like you're in the same place or you've been in a place like this where everything around you is telling you to keep going, keep hustling, keep doing, keep vacationing, keep buying, I want to encourage you. And you know what? It's okay to not have all the answers. Still don't have all the answers because I'm human and I'm learning. But I can tell you that I wake up every day with this renewed sense of excitement. Who am I going to meet? Who do I get to spend time with? Who am I going to connect with? That is how I feel every single day. We talked about it a little bit last week, and having God in your heart and in your life and filling up that empty void doesn't mean that bad things aren't going to happen. Actually, I feel like worse things happen because of that. It just means that when you're going through the storm, you're able to manage it. You're able to still find joy every single day, even through the hardest battles. So it's okay to feel like what God is asking you to do doesn't make sense on paper because it probably won't make sense. You do not have to understand everything right now. I am still in the midst of it and I don't understand half of the things that are going on, but I'm at peace and I don't feel empty anymore. I feel so full. Trust that He's moving in the quiet moments. Please don't break your leg or an ankle and have to sit on a couch for 8 weeks to hear the words that He's saying. He's working behind the scenes, even if you don't see it. And listen, when you're ready, when you hear that nudge or you feel that whisper, don't ignore it. It might not be the loudest call, but I promise you it's worth listening to. So here's what I want you to do after this episode. Sit in stillness for a moment. Ask yourself, what's that quiet nudge that I've been ignoring? And what would it look like if I take a step of obedience, even if it feels uncomfortable or uncertain? Thank you so much for joining me today on Invisible Strings. I hope this episode encourages you to trust in God's timing in your life, especially when you're feeling exhausted or burnt out or like you're in a desert. Remember, you don't have to have everything figured out right now. Just take a deep breath and let Him move in His own time. This episode resonated with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Send me a message on Instagram or leave a review. And if you're not already, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes on motherhood, friendship, and faith. Until next time, friends, take care of yourself and listen to those quiet whispers. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Invisible Strings, where we've tugged at a few threads and hopefully left you with a smile and something to think about. Remember, life's connections might be invisible, but they're oh so strong. If you enjoyed today's chat, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little string pulling in their life. Until next time, keep those invisible strings intact, and I'll see you back here soon for more heartfelt conversations and a dash of fun. Stay connected, stay kind, and keep untangling.